We've said that the time cognition refers to mental state like knowing, believing, and to mental processes that we use to arrive at those states. So, for example, reasoning is a cognitive process, so it's perception. We use information that we perceive through our senses to help us make decisions, to arrive at beliefs, and so on. And then there are memory and imagination, which through our senses to help us make decisions to arrive at beliefs and so on. And then there are memory and imagination, which relate to the knowledge of things that happened in the past, may happen in the future. So perceiving, we've said that the time cognition refers to mental states like knowing and believing and to mental processes that we use to arrive at those states. Internal mental processes that lead to knowing or believing. Yet each of these processes has limitations and can lead us to hold mistaken beliefs or make false predictions. Take memory, for example. Maybe you have heard of studies in which people hear a list of related words. Let's say a list of different kinds of fruits. After hearing this list, they are presented with several additional words. In this case, we'll say the additional words were blanket and cherry. Neither of these words was on the original list, and well, people will claim correctly that blanket was not on the original list. And they also claim incorrectly that the word cherry was on the list. Most people are convinced they heard the word cherry on the original list. Why do they make such a simple mistake? Well, we think because the words on the list were so closely related, the brain stored only the gist of what they heard. For example, that all the times on the list were the type of the fruit. When we tap our memory, our brains often fill in the detail, and quite often these details are actually false. We also see this fill-in phenomenon with perception. Perception is a faculty that allows us to process information in the present as we take it via our sense. Again, studies have shown that the people will feel information that they thought they perceived even when they didn't. For example, experiments have been done where a person hears a sentence, but it is missing the word that logically completed. They claim to hear that word even though it was never said. So if I were to say the sunrise is in the then fail to complete sentence, people will often claim to have heard the word is. In cognitive psychology, we have a phrase for this kind of inaccurate framing of the detail. It's it's called a blind spot. The term originally refers to the place in our eyes where the optic nerve connects the back of the eyes to the brain. There are no photoreceptors in the area where the nerve connects to the eye, so that particular area of the eye is incapable of detecting images. images. It produces a blind spot in our field of vision. Field of vision. But the term blind spot has also taken a more general meaning, which refers to people being unaware of a bias that may affect their judgment over the subject, and the same blind spot phenomenon that affects memory and perception also affects imagination. Imagination is a faculty that some people use to anticipate future events in their lives, but the ease with which we imagine details can lead to unrealistic expectations and can bias our decision. So, Peter, suppose I ask you to imagine a lunch salad. No problem, right? But I bet you imagine specific ingredients. Did you have tomatoes, onions, lettuce? Mine did. Our brain fill in all sorts of details that might not be a part of other people's image of salad, which could lead to disappointment for us if the next time we order a salad in a restaurant. We have already imagined the salad in my mind. That's not necessarily what we'll get on our plate. The problem is not that we imagine things, but that we assume what we've imagined is accurate. We should be aware that our imagination has this built-in feature, the blind spot, which makes our predictions fall short of reality.